You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today, we are looking back over the last 2 weeks at the top 18 players in fantasy basketball. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. And this list looks different to what we usually see at the top of lists and over the course of the season where the rankings are, because at number one is Damian Lillard. That's not to say that Lillard's not a top 10 player, because he absolutely is, but he has been unbelievable. And he's pushed himself up to the number 5 overall player this year. But over the past 6 games, 40 minutes a game, 44 points, 7 threes a game, 5 rebounds, 9 assists, 1.2 steals, shooting 52% and 51% from 3, including 87% from the line on 11 attempts. Those numbers are unbelievably good. Of course, there's no way that it continues. No one hits 7 threes a game or averages 44 points a game. And even for Lillard, 52% shooting and 9 assists per game is a big stretch. But he has been so good. After a bit of a slow start to the season, Lillard is absolutely rolling at the moment and putting up those numbers where you drafted him in that 7 to 9 range in the draft. He's marginally beating that, which is exactly what you want from a guy drafted in that area. Total consistency, big numbers, and has really cranked that up of late. Again, I do expect a bit of a come down. If you could get a top 3 player back in a trade, I would do it, but I don't think that's going to be something that really happens all that often. And in a bit of a throwback, at number 2, and actually, let me rephrase that. At number 2 is the fun guy.
I'm a fun guy.
Kawhi Leonard, 34 points per game, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 50% shooting, usage of 37%. Paul George is about to return, so I think we're going to see Leonard take a step down. But on a per-game basis, Kawhi is the number 4 ranked player over the course of this season. It has stepped it up over this little stretch of time. He's been relatively healthy this season, was obviously the load management, injury management days, which again, I do think, and maybe it's just wishful thinking, I do think he will play in one back-to-back for some reason this season. And if he doesn't, he never will. It would be my thoughts on that with his knee and quad, but he has been great for the games that he has played, which is a lot more than people actually realize. He's played quite a few games, and people seem to think he's missing 20, 30 games when that's obviously not the case. Now, this one's the throwback, because at number 3 is Russell Westbrook, averaging 35, 10, and 8 with 2.3 steals, but amazingly, 56% from the field and 83% from the line. We know both of those field goal percentage and free throw percentage have been numbers that have killed Westbrook over the last couple of years. He's on a massive hot streak at the moment. He's helping the Rockets with Harden struggling. It's not helping them to wins, but he's helping put up those numbers with Harden out. And those percentage numbers are probably not going to stick. But what he has done is really reduced his three-point attempt rate down. He's averaging under 1 3-point attempt per game. Yes, he's only hitting them at 20%, but he's only taken 5 threes in the last 6 games, which helps his overall efficiency and his overall play. So Westbrook there up to number 3 on this list. At number 4, Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns. In the last 7, he's averaging 32, 5, and 6, 54 and 91. And I look at those numbers and I say, what's off about him? Like, what can't he do? Like, he probably can't be a 54% shooter. He's shooting 40% from 3. Cool, no worries. He's shooting 91% from the line on almost 10 attempts. Sure. 6 assists, no worries. He can do all of that. It's probably just that field goal percentage, which is a little bit high. He's the 11th ranked player this season. He's going to be that fringe first round guy for quite a while, I would imagine, in fantasy. It's all going to come down to if he can be a 30-point guy or a 25-point guy or a 45% field goal or a 49% field goal. That's the big difference there. With what Booker can do. Next up, we look at Chris Middleton of the Milwaukee Bucks, who's at number 5 on this list, averaging 26 and 7 with 5 assists, shooting 61 and 92 from the line. He was on my Sell High podcast yesterday, talking about why those shooting numbers are unsustainable, but he is that number 5 guy over the last couple of weeks. And at number 6, Ben Simmons, 23, 9, and 8, 66% shooting, 70 from the line, which is an improvement for him. It's in large part because Embiid was out that Simmons was able to get to this high. He's the 18th ranked player over the course of the season. He probably can get back at least around that number, or maybe a little bit higher than that from here on out. But I would say that this recent level of production from Simmons is almost exclusively due to Embiid's absence. And he's back now, of course. At number 7, Kemba Walker, who's had a really roller coaster season. 26 points a game over the last 6 with 5 assists, shooting 46 and 89. There's nothing crazy there, but the 28 usage is relatively high, especially because there's been times where Jason Tatum has been out and Jaylen Brown has been out, and that has enabled Kemba to get those extra minutes in there. He's ranked 29th over the course of the season, so I do think that he can be better than that. Well, actually, that's not true. I think he can be around that mark, and what he's doing at the moment is probably just a little bit unsustainable. The next guy we look at, number 8, Drew Holiday of the Pelicans. Yes, Zion has been back for 4 of these 5 games for Drew, so that is really impressive to see him here. 22, 4, and 5 with 1.8 steals and 1.4 blocks. Of course, those defensive numbers have really elevated him up the rankings, but it's impressive to see that the usage is stuck pretty solid with Zion back. The efficiency's been strong, and he's just a really, really good player. I don't believe he's getting traded. I don't believe he's getting shut down. I don't believe he's getting minutes limited or anything along those lines. So I think Drew is going to be pretty solid as a second round-ish, maybe third round-ish type of guy for the rest of the way here. And at number 9, Bradley Beal. 34 points, 6 assists, 53 and 91. That field goal percentage is way above what he's been doing all season. He was also on my Sell High podcast, just because I always worry about the injury risk with his leg and the minutes and the fact that he's shooting well above what he's done this season. He's the 23rd ranked player over the course of the year so far. Let's go on to the next one. We're looking at the Kyrie Irving, who comes in at number 10 on this list. Played 4 games, 25, 5, and 5.5. 2 steals, which is obviously way out of character for Kyrie, but he's been really good this year. The 6th overall player in per game value over the course of the season. I think we should be looking at him as at least a top 10-ish sort of guy for the rest of the year. And then at number 11, Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks. He is also a top 10 player this season. The 8th ranked guy will be a consistent top 10 guy for many years to come, averaging 35 and 12. That is huge, and only 0.8 steals over the last 2 weeks, so that could go up. 48% shooting, 81% from the line. This is around the zone we're looking at Young as a first-round guy. And then to round out that first-round value, LeBron James is the 12th ranked player, averaging 25, 7, and 10 with 1.8 steals. Just pretty standard numbers from LeBron. He is 7th overall this season in per-game value, so been a bit of a surprise to see him jump up from where he was last year, but he's been really, really good. While Big Chungus Nikola Jokic is 13th. 37 minutes a game over his last 7, 24, 12, and 7. The Nuggets are dealing with a lot of injuries, so his minutes have gone up. The shooting woes at the start of the season have dropped, although over those 7 games, he's hitting only 24% of his threes. He was at 20% to begin the season, had like a 46% run through December, fallen back off again. But Jokic, who is the 17th ranked player, a bit of a disappointment from where he was projected to go, where he was drafted at the beginning of the season. He's still rolling along, and I still think that he can get better from where he is. Next up is Donovan Mitchell at number 14. 30-point average over his last 7 games. 47% shooting. 95 from the line. That will come down. He's not a 95% free throw shooter. And even if it comes down 6-7%, it is still a big impact. And I think the field goals, he's a guy that can be inconsistent there. He has shot much better over the last few weeks, but I'm not convinced that that's something he's going to be able to maintain as we move forward. The next guy on our list here is Hassan Whiteside, the 15th ranked player. The world! 16 and 14, 4.5 blocks, 68 from the field, 67 from the line, 69 in our hearts. Really good numbers from Whiteside. There's no denying that he's putting up huge numbers. Now, the usage isn't all that high, but it doesn't matter because he's a rebound guy, he's a field goal guy, he's a high-ass blocks guy, and that's really where his value is coming from, just those 3 categories. Next up, we look at the Baptist John Collins. This is where we sort of thought he could get to, averaging 23 and 10 on 64% shooting as the 16th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. He's 21st over the course of the season. You feel like he's going to be this second round guy for quite a few years to come as he establishes himself. And he's doing this in under 30 minutes a game as well. So there is scope for him to improve. And now at the bottom of this top 18, at number 17, Anthony Davis, a guy who's the number 2 overall player this season, has fallen off a little bit as he returns from his gluteal injury. And then at number 18, Karl Anthony Towns, the 3rd ranked overall player this season, is at number 18 over the last 2 weeks as he recovers from his knee injury. Now, mainly he's down because his rebounds are so low, just 7.6 per game. Only 1 block per game as well, and only 2.7 threes, which for him is a low number because he can be higher than that. So Towns is down there at number 18. And to round out your top 24, we've got D'Angelo Russell at 19, Ayton at 20, Van Vliet at 21, Aldridge at 22, DeRozan at 23, and Andre Drummond at 24. Shout out to the bloke who told me that they would take Derrick Rose over Van Vliet in fantasy as well. Drummond there rounding it out at number 24. Guys, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.